Hi there, my name is Marty, and today I'm going to take a look at the Schmincke Akademie watercolor paints. These paints were sent to me by a friend in Germany, as they're pretty tough to get in the US if you've ever tried to find them yourself. You can occasionally get them at Jackson's or other European outlets, but not very often are you able to find them in the United States. I have 12 of the 24 colors in the line here in my set, and I'll talk about how great these are for mixing. More on that later, which you can see here at a glance, but more on that later. I'll swatch these colors out for you today. I'll mix them. I'm going to glaze with them. I'm going to compare them to other watercolor paints. And finally, I'll do a watercolor sketch to put these paints to the test. These paints come in several different set sizes, including sets with 12 and 24 full pans and 12 and 24 half pan sets. These are half pan sets. The one I'm going to demonstrate today is the 12 color half pan set. You can see the variety of sets here. All the sets, with the exception of that plastic set in the bottom left-hand corner, come in sturdy tins. I'll just say a quick word about these very durable tins that they come in. I've had my Schmincke Horadam Aquarelle set for over a decade, and it's been all over the world. It's fallen off my motorcycle, it's been run over, dropped countless times. It's been kicked around in my backpack for all that time, and it's still in great shape. Any scrapes or dents are part of its patina for me, because a good used watercolor set tells a story. Now, what comes in the tin here is this handy swatch card, and it's watercolor paper. It's pretty thin, but I figured what the heck, I'll swatch them out here anyway. The colors in the set that I'm using today are light yellow lemon, Indian yellow, cadmium red hue, carmine, ultramarine, Prussian blue, brilliant green, permanent green, English red, yellow ochre, sepia, and lamp black. The light yellow, cad red, the carmine, the ultramarine, Prussian blue, brilliant green, English red, yellow ochre, and black are all single pigment colors. The Indian yellow, perm green, and sepia are multi-pigment colors. So basically 9 out of the 12 are single pigment colors. All right, I have some watercolor paper here. This is Strathmore cold press. It's not too toothy, but good enough for my test. What I want to do here is just kind of layer some color on here, kind of simulate what some glazing might look like. And you can see here as I lay the colors over. The thing about a good quality watercolor paint is you're likely to find that it lifts or reactivates pretty quickly if you add water to it. So the glazing and layering effect is a little bit tricky, I guess, would say. I love watching Steve Mitchell's channel and seeing how he layers and glazes and mixes colors over there. I get a lot of great ideas from Steve on how to use color, but here you can just get a rough idea of what glazing might look like. And here you can see the swatch card that came with the set. This wasn't a precision job here. I was just trying, because I'm going to swatch them out anyway, I was just trying to get an idea for what this would be like. Now I'm going to try some swatches on some illustration board. I bounced over to some other channels to see what they had to say about the Schmincke Akademie watercolor paints, and I heard my friend Denise from the In Liquid Color channel. She mentioned that she wasn't a fan of the lamp black in this set and suggested maybe Schmincke could replace that with a Payne's Gray. I don't disagree with her at all about that. I agree a Payne's Gray would be great, although I like using the black and umber or some ultramarine for a blue tint to create my own Payne's Gray, which I use a lot in shading. She's got a good point, though, and I enjoyed her review of these paints. I also checked out Lindsay's review of these over at the Frugal Crafter, and two things really stood out to me with Lindsay's review. She said something I really liked. She said the swatches by themselves aren't really the best way to judge a watercolor, mainly because the colors can look vibrant in swatches, and she suggested that painting with them, actually doing a painting, was really the best way to judge paints. And, you know, I couldn't agree more, Lindsay, and I think that's a good reminder for everybody. Hey, paints were made to paint pictures and just enjoy, right? So swatches are fun, and they're good, and they're informative, but, I mean, painting with these is the best way to tell. Now, here you can get a good 4K close-up of the colors. Now, in her review, Lindsay mentioned the uniformity of the paints when glazing, and I noticed that too. And that's a feature for me, not a negative with Schmincke paints. I love that Schmincke consistently delivers that uniformity. The finer milled pigments basically ensure that I get a very, very consistent experience every time. That's important to me for mixing or glazing or being able to rely on the same behavior from these colors in my work. Lindsay also mentioned mixing and that the primary colors were better for mixing than some of the other colors. The reds, the blues, the greens, they're really good. Yellows, all that's great for mixing. And even the other colors contribute to being able to mix well. And here, in a second here, we'll look at some comparisons on these paints. Lindsay's, the other thing she mentioned in her review was the Lucas student grade paints and comparing them as being more affordable and comparable to these paints. And I don't want to cause any YouTube controversy with my good friend Lindsay, but I'll just say she's right. If your consideration is price point, that's a correct statement. But if you want to compare on all other measures, including pigments, pigmentation, light fastness, transparency, and consistency, then I believe Schmincke Academy wins every time. Now here I'm comparing the Schmincke Academy to the Schmincke Horadem Aquarelle paints, which are their quote-unquote professional line. I try not to use the term student grade too much when I refer to Schmincke's Academy paints because really their Academy or student grade paint, if you will, is just as good, if not better, than many professional watercolor paints out there on the market. I know there's only 24 colors, but you don't need a million colors to do spectacular watercolor work. And if you can get a well-made, consistent, reasonably priced watercolor paint that delivers on 90% of what you need to do good work, especially if you're a sketch artist. Now here I'm comparing the paints to I think this is Andy Evenson's palette, a Daniel Smith palette, and that palette is excellent. I reviewed that on the channel. It's excellent. You can find that if you search the channel. But and there's Sennelier. Those are beautiful paints made with honey, and they are very luminous paints, very, very good for transparency and just very beautiful paints as well. I wouldn't say they're as consistent as Schmincke's, but they're darn close, and they're excellent paints. Anyway, I was getting back to what I was talking about a second ago about comparing like student grade. Oh, here's another. Hey, hang on. See, I got distracted by this because this is Daler and Rowney, which is a quote-unquote entry-level paint or a student grade paint. And I think they're great paints, and they're wonderful. And maybe they're not the most light fast, but again, if you're in a sketchbook or you're a sketch artist, you don't really care about that. And remember, watercolor paints originally were like studies for oil paintings. So they were kind of like, I don't know, 18th, 19th century throwaway work. With the advent of watercolor, you could get and do a nice preliminary painting in watercolor for your oil painting. Here is the Holbein paint, and I love Holbein, but again, a lot of people are turned off by the opaqueness in the Japanese and Russian paints, Chinese paints. Sakura Koi comes to mind. I mean, there's White Knights, a bunch of those. Yarka, I think, is another one. But they're very opaque. Here's the Magello Mission watercolors. These are made in Korea. Another opaque paint, but a bit more transparent than those other paints and really nice. Now, do the Academy stack up to these? I think so. I don't think they're, a perfect match, but they're pretty darn good. And again, inexpensive. Now, here's a paint where it's pretty obvious to tell that the Schmincke Academy paints are better. This is the Royal Talons transparent watercolors. I reviewed these way back in the day, but you can see here the vibrancy in the colors better. I think there's more of these colors from Schmincke that are single pigment. So you're getting, more bang for your buck, if you will, with these watercolor paints. A couple more quick points here. My friend Eve Bolt reviewed these paints and did a really good job. She had a lot of favorable things to say about them as well. Go check out her review. Technical notes. Most of the paints in the Academy line are single pigment paints. Schmincke uses natural gum Arabic as a binder in these paints. They're free of all animal products and they're easily reactivated after drying. Well, it's time to take Lindsay's advice and put these to the test by doing a sketch here. This is going to be done on my B paper sketchbook here. This is a little tiny one. It's got a nice rigid backing though, and I like the paper. It handles some mixed media. We'll start with a drawing. Channeling my inner Peter Draws here, I will start with a drawing. And then I'll fill it in here with the paint color, and we'll do a little, it's kind of the drafting work here and laying down some of the base color, and then just hopefully you can sit back and enjoy this. I might have mentioned going over to Steve Mitchell's channel, The Mind of Watercolor. Steve's a good friend of mine. I learn a tremendous amount from him, and one of the things that I like to do is look at him when he mixes his paint. So the different mixes he gets. And in this set, I tried some mixing, and you can get ultramarine plus English red or cad red to give you a nice violet or purple color. You can mix the Indian yellow plus ultramarine for a nice olive, or the English red and Prussian blue for a gray violet. The sepia plus the English red will give you a nice burnt umber in this set, and lots of the colors are great for mixing. Here's all 12 colors in the Akademie line here. I won't read them off to you. You can see, including the pigments, and most of them, like I said, are single pigment paints, which is very nice. And Schmincke rates their light fastness themselves, so you be the judge of how accurate that is. And like I say to people, put it to the test yourself. But if you're sketching in a watercolor book, you really don't need to worry too much about light fastness. Well, this has been a pretty good look at the Schmincke Akademie watercolor paints. If you haven't done so, bounce over to owingsart.com. Follow my artistic journey there. If you scroll down on the website a little bit, you'll see this little blue box. Click the follow button and join these other good folks who are following my art journey over on my website. And then, hey, follow me on Instagram if you haven't done so. I post stuff there quite a bit, and it's stuff you might not see on the channel. So go over there and have a look if you get a chance. So long for now. This has been Marty for owingsart.com.